I found out my husband went on a getaway with his mistress, but when he arrived, I was already there with her fiancé. Now his career is ruined, and she's under criminal investigation. The message appeared on my screen at 3:17 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. A forwarded email confirmation from Paradise Cruise Lines, not sent to me, but accidentally shared to our family cloud account. A luxury suite, champagne package, couples massage, all booked in my husband's name for the following week, during his important business conference in Seattle. Except that there was another name on the reservation, Vanessa Vanetz. My hands did not tremble. My coffee did not spill. Something crystallized inside of me. 15 years of marriage, suddenly framed with a perfect and terrible clarity. I went through the itinerary with a strange detachment. A 5-day Caribbean cruise, a balcony suite with an ocean view, dinner at the captain's table. All the romantic cliches you would expect from a man who could not even remember what flowers I preferred on our anniversary. "Working late again tonight, babe," he had texted me an hour earlier. "Do not wait up for me." I magnified the cruise details, noting the suite number 1243, deck 10, starboard side. Seeing those specific details made it real. This was not just an affair, this was planning, calculation, a parallel life that was being built while I maintained ours. How foolish I had been. I remember getting up and walking to the closet in our bedroom, the one we shared. His suits hung next to my dresses as if they belonged there, his shoes lined up with mine. The physical proximity of our things suddenly seemed obscene. I was about to start pulling at his clothes, to rip the fabric and shatter the memories, when my phone rang again. Another notification from the family cloud. A photo appeared, a young, blonde woman, perfect teeth, posing in front of a mirror in lingerie that still had price tags hanging from it. The caption read, "I cannot wait for you to take this off me on our trip." Counting the days. I recognized her, Vanessa Vanetz, the new director of customer service at my husband's company, whom he had insisted on inviting to our Christmas party last December. The one who had looked at me with something akin to pity as she accepted a glass of wine in my house. What stopped me from destroying his things was not restraint, it was a random memory, a conversation I overheard at a charity gala 3 months ago, Vanessa loudly discussing her engagement to some tech entrepreneur, showing off a flashy diamond ring, talking about her upcoming wedding in June. I sat on the edge of our bed, with the phone still in my hand, and did something I had never done before. I typed her name into social media. Her profile was public, full of hashtags like blessed and future wife. And there he was, her fiancé, tagged in dozens of photos. Bradley Norton, handsome in his polished Silicon Valley way, his own profile full of startup success stories and motivational quotes. A recent post caught my eye, heading off on a solo trip before the wedding madness. Time to clear my head and come back ready to start forever with that Vanessa Vanetz. The cruise dates matched exactly. A strange calm washed over me, the kind that comes when the universe delivers something so perfectly timed it feels like fate. I opened my laptop and navigated to the deck plans of Paradise Cruise Lines. Cabin availability. My credit card was already in my hand. 20 minutes later, I had my own confirmation email. Single cabin 1245. Right next to their love nest. The symmetry was too perfect to ignore. I took a deep breath and did the only rational thing a woman in my position could do. I found Bradley Norton's professional email through his company's website and sent him a message. "Mr. Norton, I believe we have something important to discuss regarding our respective partners and their upcoming Caribbean cruise. Would you be available for coffee tomorrow? It concerns your fiancée, Vanessa, and my husband, who have made plans I believe you should be aware of." Attached is the booking confirmation. I did not cry, I did not scream. I simply waited, watching the small dots that indicated he was reading my message, typing, stopping, typing again. His reply came 3 minutes later. Where and when? The next morning, I sat at a corner table in a chic downtown coffee shop, watching the door. I recognized him immediately, taller in person, with that confident stride of someone used to commanding rooms. His eyes met mine across the space. Recognition, understanding, the look of someone whose world was also shattering. He sat across from me. There was no handshake. No introduction was needed. "Show me everything," he said in a low voice. And I did. By the time our coffees grew cold, we had formed an alliance born of shared betrayal. Not just an alliance, a pact, a strategy. "They think they are so clever," I said finally, allowing a bitter smile. "They have no idea what is coming." Bradley's expression hardened with resolve. "What exactly did you have in mind?" I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "I have already booked the cabin next to theirs, but one person watching their romantic getaway fall apart is not as satisfying as two. Do not you think?" He matched my lean, his voice equally low. "Are you suggesting what I think you are suggesting?" "I am suggesting we both take that cruise. I am suggesting we become very, very good friends who just happen to be everywhere they are. I am suggesting we make this the vacation they will never forget, for all the wrong reasons." For the first time since we sat down, Bradley smiled. It was not a pleasant smile, it was the smile of someone envisioning sweet, calculated retribution. "I am in," he said, "but we have to be smarter than them. We need a plan that does not just catch them, but destroys whatever fantasy they have built." I nodded, feeling something like excitement beneath my anger. "By the time we dock back in Miami, they will wish they had never set foot on that ship." The week before the cruise was an Academy Award-worthy performance. I kissed my husband goodbye as he packed his conference clothes. I helped him choose a tie for his presentation. I even drove him to the airport, waving from the departure lane with a smile plastered on my face. "I will miss you," he said. His eyes were not quite meeting mine. "Oh, I am sure the time will fly," I replied, thinking of the swimsuit and evening gowns already packed in my own suitcase, hidden in Bradley's temporary apartment. As soon as his plane took off, not toward Seattle, but toward Miami, I drove straight to the port, where Bradley was waiting. We had spent every day of the past week planning, coordinating, and building a backstory that would make us look like old college friends reuniting by chance, practicing our reactions for when we accidentally ran into our cheating partners. We memorized the ship's layout. We booked identical excursions to the ones they had scheduled. "How are you feeling?" Bradley asked as we checked in at the cruise terminal, his hand briefly touching my shoulder. "I keep alternating between wanting to cry and wanting to push them both overboard," I admitted. He nodded. "I have already looked up maritime law. Unfortunately, that would be frowned upon." That unexpected flash of dark humor made me laugh for the first time in days. It felt strange in my throat. We embarked separately, agreeing to meet later after settling into our cabins. I found mine easily, 12:45, right next to where my husband would soon be caressing his mistress. I pressed my ear against the adjoining wall, empty for now. Their flight would not arrive for a few more hours. I unpacked methodically, hanging dresses I had bought specifically for this cruise. Dresses my husband had never seen. Dresses chosen to make a statement when the inevitable confrontation came. At 6 in the evening, Bradley sent a text message. "They have boarded." I just saw them at check-in. They did not see me. My heart raced. My palms grew damp. The moment was approaching faster than I had anticipated. I met Bradley at a bar 3 decks up, far enough away that we would not immediately run into them. He already had a Martin waiting for me. "To the most twisted vacation any of us has ever taken," he said, raising his glass. I clinked mine against his. "To surviving, if not with our dignity, then with our marriages." My marriage was over before it began, apparently. His voice had the same hollow quality I had felt in my own chest for days. We shared our stories then, filling in the blanks of our relationships. Bradley had met Vanessa at a tech conference 2 years ago. They had gotten engaged quickly, too quickly, he realized now. There had been signs of her unfaithfulness, unexplained absences, cagey phone behavior, sudden work emergencies. I ignored it all, he said, staring into his drink. I wanted to believe I had found the one so badly. 15 years, I replied. 15 years I gave him. We talked about kids. We decided together to focus on our careers first. We had a timeline. Next year was supposed to be our year to try. My voice broke unexpectedly. Bradley's expression softened. "I am sorry. Do not be angry." "I am." We spent hours talking, drinking just enough to keep us relaxed, but not enough to cloud our judgment. We needed to be sharp, ready. Around 10 at night, we ventured to the main dining room for the welcome dinner, and there they were, seated at a two-top table near the windows. My husband's hand rested on the small of Vanessa's back as she studied the menu. Intimate, comfortable, practiced. The sight hit me harder than I expected. This was not their first trip together. This was not new. The realization made my knees buckle slightly. Bradley steadied me with a hand on my elbow. "Not yet," he whispered. "Let them have tonight. Let them think they have gotten away with it. Tomorrow, we begin." We retreated to a different restaurant, but I could not eat. My stomach was a knot of acid and anger. "How long do you think this has been going on?" I asked, pushing pasta around my plate. "Does it matter?" "A day, a month, a year. They both betrayed us." "It matters to me," I insisted. "I need to know how much of my life has been a lie." Back in my cabin that night, I pressed my ear to the wall again. I could hear them laughing, murmuring, the occasional creak of the bed springs. I recorded all of it, evidence of what was to come. I barely slept. When morning came, I met Bradley for breakfast on the Lido deck. We had determined that our unfaithful partners had booked a snorkeling excursion at our first port of call, a small private island owned by the cruise line. "Ready for day one?" Bradley asked, sliding a coffee toward me. "As ready as I will ever be." We took the tender boat to the island, 30 minutes after my husband and Vanessa had left. We spotted them easily on the beach, sharing a lounge chair, her head on his chest, his fingers tracing through her hair. Bradley and I set up our own chairs exactly in their line of sight, but angled so they would not notice us immediately. We waited for the perfect moment, the recognition, the shock. It came when my husband got up to get drinks from the beach bar. He turned around with 2 frozen cocktails in hand and froze mid-stride upon seeing me. The drinks tipped, blue liquid splashing onto his hands. I gave a small wave, as casual as if we were passing in a grocery store. His face went pale, so quickly I thought he might faint. He remained paralyzed, unable to move toward me or toward Vanessa, who was still swiping on her phone, oblivious. I adjusted my new swimsuit, a daring red one-piece I would have never chosen before, and walked directly toward him. "What a coincidence," I said, loud enough for nearby sunbathers to hear. "How lucky to run into you here. Seattle looks different than I remembered." He opened and closed his mouth, speechless. Over his shoulder, I saw Vanessa look up, confusion crossing her face. Then horror as she saw Bradley approaching from behind me. "What?" "How?" my husband finally managed to say. "Your mistress should be more careful about sharing your itinerary to the family cloud account," I said sweetly. "Oh, and you should meet my friend Bradley. I think he already knows your girlfriend." I turned to Vanessa, whose face had turned the color of soured milk. "The engagement ring looks lovely in the sunlight. Does your husband know you are engaged? Or is that just a detail you overlooked while planning your romantic getaway?" People were watching us now, openly staring at the drama unfolding on the perfect white sand. "This is not what it looks like," my husband finally said. The most cliché line possible. "Really?" I looked pointedly at the 2 blue drinks, then at Vanessa's shocked face, and then back at him. "Because it looks exactly like you are on a cruise with your mistress, while telling your wife you are at a business conference in Seattle." Bradley stepped forward, addressing Vanessa directly. "We have booked all the same excursions as you. Is not that a wonderful coincidence? We will have plenty of quality time together on this trip." And that was just the beginning, day 1 of 5, the foundation for what would become the most excruciating vacation for 2 people who thought they had gotten away with betrayal. I knew I had given this man everything, my youth, my trust, my unwavering support through career changes and family losses. I had been there through it all, believing we were building something meaningful together. And all the while, he had been building a separate life, a life that did not include me. I gave them one last smile. "Enjoy your drinks. The cruise is just getting started." That night, Bradley and I regrouped in my cabin, dissecting the day's confrontation and fine-tuning our strategy for the days to come. The initial shock had provided satisfaction, but it was not enough, not nearly enough for the depth of their betrayal. "They are rattled," Bradley observed, pacing the small confines of my room. I intercepted Vanessa trying to change their dinner and excursion reservations. I nodded, scrolling through the ship's app on my tablet. They will not get far. I have befriended 3 crew members who are keeping me updated on any changes they try to make. This was no longer a spontaneous reaction. During that week of planning, I had been methodical in ways I never knew I could be. What my husband did not know, I had photographed every document in his office before I left the house. I had downloaded his text message history through our phone plan's backup service. I had contacted our bank and flagged major expenses from the past year, creating a perfect timeline of his affair through hotel charges and gift purchases. What Vanessa did not know, Bradley had been equally thorough, collecting screenshots of suspicious messages, tracking her location history, and, most damningly, documenting how she had been siphoning investor funds from their joint venture to finance luxury purchases. Tomorrow is formal night, I said, studying the schedule. They will be expecting us to make a scene. Bradley stopped pacing. So we do not. We do the opposite. Exactly. I smiled, feeling a cold clarity. We will be nice, friendly, even invite them to join our table. We will talk casually about wedding plans and business ventures. Psychological warfare. Bradley nodded in appreciation. The anticipation of a confrontation is often worse than the confrontation itself. I stood up and walked to my suitcase, pulling out a sealed envelope. I have been saving this for the right moment. I think I know when to use it now. Inside were photos, images from the ship's security cameras showing my husband and Vanessa on previous cruises. Dates, timestamps, proof of a pattern going back 18 months. The head of security had been surprisingly helpful after I explained my situation and offered him a generous consultation fee. How did you get these? Bradley asked, impressed. Let's just say that when your husband boasts about always booking the same cruise line for business trips, it creates a traceable pattern. I laid out the photos chronologically. 8 cruises in 18 months. Always with her, always during what he claimed were conferences or client meetings. Bradley whistled softly. That is not an affair, that is a second relationship. Exactly. And tomorrow night, I want them both to understand that we know everything, not just this cruise, everything. We stayed up past midnight, planning every interaction, every casual run-in for the remaining days. We were no longer improvising. This was choreographed retribution. The next morning brought another excursion, a tour of ancient ruins at our first port of call. As planned, Bradley and I arrived just as my husband and Vanessa were boarding the tour bus. The color drained from their faces when they saw us. I smiled brightly and took the seat directly behind them. Good morning. Did you sleep well? Vanessa stared straight ahead, rigid with tension. My husband attempted a weak smile. Look, can we talk in private? Oh, we will have plenty of time to talk, I assured him. We have 3 more days together on this lovely ship. No rush. During the tour, Bradley and I kept up a pleasant conversation, occasionally directing innocuous questions to our uncomfortable companions. Have you visited these ruins before? Is not the architecture fascinating? Every normal interaction seemed to make them more on edge than a direct confrontation would. By the time we returned to the ship, they were visibly unraveling, exchanging tense whispers, looking over their shoulders, jumping at the sight of us around every corner. For formal night that evening, I wore a black dress I had bought specifically for this cruise, elegant, understated, with just enough edge to make a statement. Bradley wore a tailored suit that highlighted all the advantages of his athletic build. We entered the dining room, deliberately 15 minutes after my husband and Vanessa were seated. May we join you? I asked, already pulling out a chair at their 2-top table. The maitre d' mentioned they had space. He could not refuse without creating a scene. Trapped by social convention, they shifted uncomfortably as we settled in. Lovely evening, is it not? Bradley began, unfolding his napkin with expert ease. Vanessa, that dress looks familiar. Did not you wear that to the Henderson Charity Gala last year? Her eyes widened slightly. The Henderson Gala had been a work event, one where she had introduced my husband as her colleague. Yes, I think so, she stammered. I waved over a waiter. Champagne for the table, please. We are celebrating. My husband's expression darkened. What exactly are we celebrating? I smiled, reaching into my purse to pull out the envelope of photos. Anniversaries, specifically, the 18-month anniversary of your first cruise together. I laid the photos on the table one by one like dealing cards. Caribbean, last March. Mediterranean, May. Alaska, July. Each one during what he told me were business trips. The blood drained from his face. How? I have always admired your consistency, I continued, my voice steady despite the pounding in my heart. Same cruise line, often the same cabin category. It made tracking surprisingly easy. Vanessa's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. Bradley chose that moment to make his contribution. Speaking of consistency, he said, sliding a folder across the table toward Vanessa, I have been reviewing our company's finances. An interesting pattern of withdrawals that happens to match the dates of these cruises. Her glass froze halfway to her lips. That is not. You cannot prove. Our investors were quite interested in the documentation, Bradley continued calmly. I had a fascinating call with them yesterday. This was the moment I had prepared for, watching the realization dawn that we were not just angry spouses lashing out. We had been methodical, patient. We had receipts, literally and figuratively. What do you want? My husband finally asked, his voice barely audible over the dining room's ambient noise. I leaned forward, holding his gaze. For tonight, just dinner, pleasant conversation. Perhaps you could tell Bradley about your conference schedule for the next few months. I am sure he would be interested to know which business trips are actually romantic getaways. They sat frozen, trapped by their own web of lies as the waiter arrived with champagne. I raised my glass. To the truth. It always surfaces eventually. During dinner, we maintained a cordial conversation, periodically dropping details that confirmed how thoroughly we had researched their affair. Each revelation landed like a precise incision, small cuts that added up to significant damage. By dessert, they both looked physically ill. When we finally rose to leave, I left a room key card on the table. For your convenience, I explained, it is for the cabin adjacent to yours. We have been taking turns listening through the wall. The soundproofing is surprisingly poor. My husband's face contorted with the realization that even their most intimate moments had been compromised. As Bradley and I walked away, he whispered, that was masterful, but it is only the beginning, is it not? I nodded, feeling not joy, but a cold satisfaction. Tomorrow, we move to phase 2. Tonight was about showing them we know everything. Tomorrow is about showing them what that knowledge will cost them. Back in my cabin, I finally allowed myself a moment of genuine emotion, not for my husband, but for the life I had believed in. 15 years lost, trust shattered, future plans evaporated. But in its place was something unexpected, a sense of my own power. I had been blindsided by betrayal, but I had responded, not with helpless grief, but with calculated action. I sent a final text to Bradley before sleeping. Thank you for today. Tomorrow, we show no mercy. His reply came immediately. They created this situation. We are just making sure they experience the consequences they deserve. I fell asleep to the sound of a muffled argument through the wall, a lullaby of justice beginning to unfold. The third day of the cruise dawned bright and clear, a perfect backdrop for what Bradley and I had planned. While my husband and Vanessa had spent the night arguing, we had been finalizing details with various crew members and other passengers we had recruited to our cause. Our first encounter was at breakfast. We spotted them at a corner table, hunched over coffee, looking exhausted and tense. Instead of approaching, we sat prominently in the center of the dining room, laughing and chatting with a group of passengers we had befriended, specifically 2 couples who happened to be from my husband's industry. The Kittiana, they're from WAST Partners. I exclaimed as we walked past their table later, gesturing to our new friends. Apparently, they've been trying to reach your firm about that merger proposal. What a coincidence to run into them here. My husband's coffee cup clattered against its saucer. Vespers was, in fact, a major potential client his company had been courting for months. Now they were hearing about his business conference while he sat next to his mistress. We are getting a drink with them later, Bradley added cheerfully. You should join us. I am sure they would love to hear about your professional commitments. They did not reply, But the message was clear. Their private affair was becoming increasingly public, with imminent professional consequences. By noon, we had rolled out the next phase. During their scheduled couples massage in the ship's spa, they arrived to find their appointment had been accidentally changed to separate treatments in different rooms. Meanwhile, Bradley and I enjoyed their original time slot, having befriended the spa manager with a generous tip and a compelling story of anniversary celebrations. Small disruptions continued throughout the day. Their lunch reservation was mysteriously canceled. Their shore excursion was overbooked. Their special requests were lost in the system. Nothing dramatic enough to blame on sabotage, just a steady stream of inconveniences that were chipping away at their romantic getaway. But the real turning point came that night. The ship's schedule featured a passenger talent show, followed by a dance contest. Bradley and I had signed up, and we had also entered my husband's and Vanessa's names without their knowledge. Our next contestants, the cruise director announced to the packed lounge, are joining us to celebrate a special occasion. Please welcome David and Vanessa. A spotlight swung to their table, where they sat frozen in horror as their names were called. The crowd clapped enthusiastically. "We have heard you are celebrating a special anniversary," the director continued, reading from the card I had submitted. 18 months of relationship bliss. Although I am also hearing congratulations are in order for Vanessa's engagement. Wait, that cannot be right. Confused murmurs rippled through the audience as my husband and Vanessa remained glued to their seats. The mortification was plain on their faces. "Maybe they are feeling shy," Bradley called out from our table. "Maybe they would feel more comfortable if we showed everyone pictures of their celebration first." Before they could react, the large screen behind the stage lit up with images, the security camera photos from their previous cruises, interspersed with screenshots of text messages between them planning their trysts. I had carefully edited out anything explicitly incriminating, leaving just enough context for the audience to piece the situation together. We did not authorize," my husband stammered, finally finding his voice as he stood up. "Oh, one more special picture," I announced, nodding to the AV tech I had befriended. The screen switched to show Vanessa's engagement announcement post, complete with her beaming smile next to Bradley, a massive ring prominently displayed. The date stamp was unmistakable, 6 months into her affair with my husband. The room fell silent as the realization washed over the audience. Then came the whispers, the sideways glances, the judgment. They had avoided this by carrying on their affair on anonymous cruise ships where no one knew them. "I believe that is our cue," Bradley said, standing and offering me his hand. "We should show them how it is done." We took to the dance floor for the competition, performing a tango we had practiced during our week of planning. Every dramatic turn and dip was executed with precision. Our eyes met in a performance of connection that drew enthusiastic applause. When we finished, I saw my husband and Vanessa exiting the lounge, heads down, unable to face the room full of strangers who now knew their secret. We followed at a distance, watching them argue in a secluded corner of the deck. Their body language told the story: accusations, denials, recriminations. "They are imploding," Bradley observed quietly. "Good," I replied, feeling a deeper satisfaction than I expected. "But we are not done yet." That night, we implemented the final stage of our ship-based plan. While they were at dinner, relocated to room service after the public humiliation, I arranged for the ship's photography team to deliver something special to their cabin, a commemorative album we had created using the ship's photo service. Inside were professional photos taken throughout the cruise, candid shots of their arguments, their tense body language, their obvious discomfort. Meanwhile, Bradley and I appeared in frame after frame. The photographers had been generously compensated to capture these moments discreetly. The album's title, embossed in elegant script, "When the Truth Surfaced, A Journey of Discovery." We watched from the hallway as a steward delivered the package through the crack of their door. I caught a glimpse of my husband's face as he opened it, the dawning of recognition, the thud of defeat. But the true culmination came the next morning as the ship prepared to dock at our final port of call. Bradley and I had arranged for a special announcement over the ship's intercom system: "Attention, passengers. Would David Thompson and Vanessa Vanetz please report to the purser's office regarding an urgent matter with your disembarkation documents? When they arrived, visibly anxious, they found not only the purser but also a representative from the cruise line's corporate office who was on board. Another fortunate connection we had made. Mr. Thompson, Ms. Vanetz, the representative began formally, it has come to our attention that you may have used fraudulent information when booking this cruise. My husband scowled. What are you talking about? Your reservation indicates this trip was booked through Marion Enterprise as a business expense, with tax documentation filed accordingly. However, the nature of your stay appears to be personal rather than professional. Vanessa paled. That is not. We did not. Furthermore, the representative continued, there is the matter of company credit card usage for non-business expenses, which has been flagged by your company's compliance department. Bradley and I watched from a discreet distance as my husband's professional world began to collapse in real time. The evidence we had gathered, including the email exchanges I had forwarded to his company's ethics hotline, had triggered an internal investigation. Meanwhile, Vanessa received her own devastating news. Her access to her startup's financial accounts had been frozen, pending an investor-led audit. Bradley had moved quickly, and her financial manipulations were now under scrutiny. As they stood there, their carefully constructed parallel lives were disintegrating around them. I felt a strange emotion, not happiness, not exactly vindication, but a profound sense of justice. This is not just about the betrayal, I said quietly to Bradley as we watched from afar. It is about the calculation, the premeditation, the years of lies. He nodded. They thought they were too smart to be caught, too arrogant to face consequences. Do you regret any of it? I asked, suddenly curious about his feelings now that our plan was coming to fruition. Bradley considered this for a moment. I regret trusting someone who did not deserve it. I regret not seeing the signs sooner. But this, he gestured to the unfolding scene, this I do not regret at all. When my husband and Vanessa emerged from the purser's office, their faces ashen with the realization that their actions had real-world consequences beyond their romantic entanglement, I stepped forward into their path. Enjoy the cruise? I asked. My voice was steady and clear. My husband looked at me with new eyes, not with anger or defiance, but with something like fear. Fear of what else I might know, what else I might have done. This is just the beginning, I told him quietly. When we dock tomorrow, you will find your belongings packed and waiting at a hotel. The locks have been changed. The divorce papers are with my lawyer, and every member of our family and social circle has received a detailed account of how and why our marriage ended. I turned to Vanessa. As for you, I wonder if your wedding vendors will refund your deposits. Bradley tells me he has been quite thorough in his communications with them. She flinched as if I had slapped her. The thing about betrayal, I continued, addressing them both, is that it shows who people really are. You both showed me exactly who you are. I am just making sure everyone else sees it too. With that, Bradley and I walked away, leaving them standing in shocked silence in our wake. That night, our last night on the ship, we dined at the captain's table, the reservation originally made for my husband and Vanessa now transferred to us through the connections we had cultivated. To new beginnings, Bradley proposed, raising his glass. I clinked mine against his, feeling lighter than I had in years. And to the truth. No matter how painful, it always sets you free. 6 months after that fateful cruise, I stood on a different deck, this one belonging to my new oceanfront condominium. The ocean stretched out before me, endless and uncertain, like my future. But for the first time in a long time, that uncertainty felt exhilarating rather than terrifying. The divorce had been finalized with surprising speed. My husband, faced with the mountain of evidence I had collected and the professional disgrace already unfolding, had not contested any of my terms. His affair had cost him more than just his marriage. The ethics investigation at his company had resulted in a demotion and a professional censure. The cruise line had also banned him from future bookings after determining he had indeed committed fraud with his business expense claims. As for Vanessa, her story had unraveled even more dramatically. The financial irregularities Bradley had uncovered were just the tip of the iceberg. Once investors began to look closely at her startup's books, they found a pattern of embezzlement that led to criminal charges. Her wedding, needless to say, never materialized, though the canceled vendor contracts and non-refundable deposits had created a financial burden that compounded her legal troubles. I took a sip of my morning coffee, watching seagulls circle against the clear blue sky. My phone buzzed with a text from Bradley. Landed. Still on for lunch. Our relationship had evolved in unexpected ways since the cruise. Not romantically, we were both too scarred for that leap, but something equally valuable, a genuine friendship, forged in the crucible of shared betrayal and recovery. We had stayed in touch through the aftermath, supporting each other through divorce proceedings, legal entanglements, and the emotional turmoil of rebuilding our lives. He had relocated to open a new, now thriving, office for his company in my coastal city. A business decision that had coincidentally aligned with my own relocation after the divorce. "See you at the bistro at 1, I texted back as I got ready for our lunch. I reflected on how differently things had turned out than any of us had expected when we boarded that cruise 6 months prior, consumed by anger and betrayal. Neither of us had imagined emerging stronger or finding a genuine connection with each other. The waterfront bistro was busy when I arrived, but Bradley had secured our usual table on the patio. He stood up when he saw me. His smile was genuine. "Tokyo deal closed," he announced as I sat down. "Investors are thrilled." "Congratulations." I raised my water glass in a mock toast. Not bad for someone whose fiancé tried to sink his company. He laughed, a sound that had become more frequent as the months passed. "Speaking of sinking, did you hear anything about our favorite couple?" I shook my head. Not directly, but Caroline mentioned seeing David at a conference last month. Apparently, he has lost weight and looks haunted. Caroline, my former neighbor, had remained firmly in my corner during the divorce. "Vanessa's plea deal was finalized," Bradley replied. "Probation, restitution, and community service. Her parents had to mortgage their house for her legal fees." We exchanged these updates not with malice, but with the detached interest of people who had moved past the need for revenge. The satisfaction had faded into something more valuable, indifference. Our food arrived, and the conversation shifted to our current lives. My new consulting business, his expansion plans, the charity gala we were both attending next weekend. "I have been meaning to ask," Bradley said as we finished dessert. "That cruise line sent me a promotional email yesterday. Caribbean itinerary, special holiday offer." I raised an eyebrow. "Planning another revenge cruise so soon?" "Actually," he said, his expression turning serious, "I was thinking of reclaiming the experience. A trip with no agenda, no manipulation, just enjoyment." "Sounds nice," I replied, surprised by his suggestion. "Would you consider coming along?" "As friends," he added quickly. "I think we both deserve to experience a cruise that is not organized around someone else's betrayal." I considered his offer, this unexpected invitation to revisit the scene of our strange alliance. 6 months ago, I would have recoiled at the thought. Now, I found myself nodding. "I would like that," I said simply. As we walked along the boardwalk after lunch, I realized something profound had shifted. The cruise that was meant to expose a betrayal had inadvertently revealed something else entirely, my own resilience. I had survived not only my husband's infidelity, but the collapse of a future I had completely believed in. "You know," I said as we paused to watch the sailboats in the harbor, "sometimes I almost want to thank them." Bradley looked surprised. "Thank them for what?" "For forcing me to become someone stronger than I ever knew I could be. For inadvertently introducing me to a true friend." I gestured between us. "Their betrayal was painful, but what came after, I would not change a thing." He nodded slowly. "I have had the same thought. If Vanessa had not cheated, I would be married to someone who was willing to steal from our company and lie to my face on a daily basis. Instead, I am here, rebuilding something authentic." The sun glinted on the water, blanketing everything in a golden light. In that moment, the sun glinted on the water, blanketing everything in a golden light. In that moment, I realized the most unexpected outcome of all. True closure does not come from revenge, however satisfying it may be. It comes from building something new from the wreckage, something honest and real. So, Bradley said, glancing at his watch, I should get back for my conference call, but about that cruise, winter break, New Year's itinerary. I smiled, feeling a lightness that had once seemed impossible. New Year's sounds perfect. A fitting way to start the next chapter. As we said our goodbyes, I took one last look at the ocean, the same ocean we had sailed upon during that fateful cruise. The water that had carried us through betrayal now stretched before me as a symbol of possibility. The horizon was open, the future was unwritten, and for the first time in years, I was genuinely excited to see what came next.